Alrighty, welcome back everyone. We just talked about some of the big time questions coming out of week 2, including who has the most impressive win thus far. I'm going to go Georgia over Clemson, although there are a number that you could definitely convince me of for sure. But let's get into this last segment. I did a top 12 Tuesday today, and this is a fun group. I'll put it that way. This is a group that was very hard to put together because you're at that point in the season where you had these ideas early on going into the season about who these teams were going to be. And I still hold a lot of those opinions about some of these teams that I'm about to talk about. So I kind of had to meld the both together. I want to give credence to the things that we've seen through 2 weeks. I want to make sure that I ding some teams that haven't played all that great. I want to make sure I reward some teams that have played great. But as of right now, it's really hard to figure out what the line is. So bear with me just a little bit. Spare me in the comments just a little bit. But let's get into this real quickly. And for me, it starts with Utah at 12. I think this is a team that really only has one concern right now: Cam Ward's health. Cam Rising's health. If Cam Rising can be on the field, I think everything else falls into place. The defense is playing really, really good football. The O-line is awesome. The wide receivers are better than they have been in quite some time over there in Utah. So overall, I think as long as he is on the field, I feel really confident in this team. But he's probably got to be back on the field by that Oklahoma State game in a couple of weeks, because if he's not, then it could get a little bit ugly in the Big 12 to start. But at the end of the day, a very, very capable team. Just comes down to that quarterback position, as it has the last couple of years for Utah. Missouri, I have at 11, and this is a team that I would put comfortably higher if I was just taking what we've seen this season, because this has been one of the most clean, confident football teams throughout 2 weeks in the entire country. No doubt about that. But I do still have worries about this defense. I still think this defense, once it goes up against some SEC opponents, and we'll get a good idea of what they are this weekend when they go up against Boston College and Thomas Castellanos, but I do think it's one of those things that I'm just hesitant, at the very least, to put Missouri a little bit higher. I still think they're a really good team and definitely could jump up this list very quickly. Even with a win this weekend, could jump up this list. But as of right now, I'm still just slightly wary of the Missouri Tigers. Oregon, I do have at 10. I think I had to drop them just a little bit, but I'm still not ready to let go of Oregon. I still think there are issues in that team that can be fixed. The one big problem that might not be fixed is they don't really have explosive plays right now. And that was what this team did so well a year ago, was lull you into a sense of security, have all of the dump offs, have all of the short routes that Bo Nix was really good at, and then go over top, because Bo Nix had the arm talent to go over top. Dylan Gabriel doesn't. So you have to figure out another way to go about business, and it might be a little bit tougher to make those big plays when you need to against Ohio State, against Michigan, and possibly in a Big Ten title and then in the playoffs. So overall, they have not looked good through 2 weeks. There's no two ways about that, but I do think this is a team that still has a lot in front of them, still has a lot of ability, and can turn things around. It's just a lot of things, or a couple of big-time things, need to be figured out relatively quickly over there in Eugene. And then I have Penn State at 9, another team that I'm going to ding just a little bit for this past week, but as we talked about earlier, this is a really good Bowling Green team. I know that sounds a little bit crazy to say. This is a good Bowling Green team, a team that definitely will have plenty to say in the MAC this upcoming year, and Penn State coming off the win that they just had at West Virginia, very emotional rivalry game. I'm trying to not put too much credence in that. I worry a little bit about this defense overall. I think they were a little bit vanilla, a little bit confusing on Saturday, but overall, I think they'll be more than fine. I think they'll be fine at the end of the day, and we'll be able to put together a good season. Just had to ding them just a little bit for what they did this past weekend. USC has looked like a well-oiled machine right now, and I have them at 8 partly because I'm still a little bit worried about that defense, but man, they look so much better on that side of the ball. Anthony Lucas is playing out of his mind. They have so many guys on that back end that are playing well, including Kamari Ramsey, obviously, and then they have a number of linebackers that are playing really good football, and it's really just a mentality thing more than anything else. So it's what DeAnton Lynn brings you. It's not necessarily about the scheming, although that absolutely helps. It's about the intensity that he brings, and it has gotten into the players, and you can really feel this USC team. So I think they're a really, really solid team. I think they still have some issues that I'd love to see them against some Big Ten opponents before I make big-time declarations, but as of right now, it's hard to not like this USC team. Alabama, I have at 7, dropped them just a little bit after that USF performance. I think it's one of those things where enough teams have played enough good football for me to bump them above Bama. I don't think Bama is necessarily any worse in my eyes as they were to start the season. At least maybe they're a little bit worse than I thought they were going to be. But at the end of the day, I do think a lot of the issues that I had going into the season are the issues that are playing out on the field. So not all that different than what I expected more than anything else. And I think when you look at this team, the O-line will likely figure itself out when Caden Proctor comes back. The back end is going to be a problem, and we'll figure out how they deal with that. But right now, I just wasn't ready to drop them too far after a performance that, yes, was bad, but against a good USF team and made it look plenty nice towards the end of that one. And then we got Tennessee at 6. We have to reward what we saw on Saturday. It was really incredible what they did on Saturday, and it was the way they went about business more than anything else. It wasn't about Nico. It wasn't about this passing attack and going downfield. It was about Dylan Sampson in this offensive and defensive line. So a huge thing for Tennessee. Not only a huge win this season, but a huge win for that program just to prove that they've come a really long way on that defensive side of the ball. So really impressive press from them, and I think when you're looking at teams throughout 2 weeks that have played as good a football as anyone, Tennessee's right up there. Played really clean football and are one of those teams that could continue to climb this list as we go on. Miami, I do have at 5. I think this is a team that has just continued to go about business. This would have been a week much like that Notre Dame game where maybe Florida A&M just hangs around for a little bit too long. That did not happen at all. Miami just tore them to pieces, and that's exactly what you would expect from this team. I think they still have to go through the ACC schedule. There's still plenty of places that they could trip up, and I still have my worries about a team that has that many transfers playing that many big roles, but at the end of the day, it's hard to have too many questions right about this moment, and we'll talk about a team right here that has that same question. Ole Miss, I have them at number 4 right now. This is kind of more of what I thought about them in the preseason. They have looked incredibly clean through 2 weeks, so I have no reason to change my opinion on them. So I'm going to roll with them at number 4 right now. Jackson Dart has been dicing up lesser competition thus far. I do think this is one of those teams that they just got to keep it rolling. They're going to be a team that works off confidence more than just about any team in the country, and I think when they have those games early on in the season, just flex their muscles a little bit, get everything going, let that offense show who they are, I think they're going to really benefit from that down the road. So we'll see what they can do in the SEC play. There's definitely still some questions around that defense, particularly the play caller in my opinion, but at the end of the day, I still think this is a very good team. This is where the curveball comes, because I have Ohio State as a 2B here, because this is a team that's handling business. They're going about everything the exact way that you would expect Ohio State to, and I think it's one of those things that they're just playing really clean football. So this has absolutely nothing to do with Ohio State. They're doing exactly what I expect them to do, and they are doing it really impressively. But the first time that we'll see this team really get tested is against Penn State, so we'll find out more then, but from now on, I think they'll probably hang out right about here for the rest of for the next little bit, unless something goes really awry in the next couple of weeks. But my 2A is Texas, and this was just, I had to reward Texas for what they did this weekend. And I understand there are questions about how good this Michigan team is. I think they are a little bit better than people are giving them credit for, but at the end of the day, I do think going up to Ann Arbor and getting that win deserves some props, deserves a little bit of a boost from 3 to 2A. So I'm going to roll with Texas, just an inch above Ohio State right now, but to be totally fair, if they were playing on a neutral field tomorrow, I think I might pick Ohio State. I would have a very hard time picking that game, but I think I would lean the Buckeyes. It's very tough to figure this out, so that's why you have a 2A and a 2B here. But I do think the biggest difference between them and the other 3 teams that we've talked about so much with Ohio State, Georgia, and Texas is the O-line and D-line depth. They have depth at both of those positions, where Georgia, you worry about the depth at defensive line. At Ohio State, you worry about the depth at offensive line, and Texas got both of them. So that might put them in a little bit of a better place to kind of go forward and make it a deep run compared to these other teams. But number 1 is Georgia. I have very few questions about this team. This is the best team in the country. They have the best quarterback in the country. They just dismantled Michigan in week 1 and went about their business in week 2 the way that Kirby Smart teams always do. So this is a team that I don't know what they would have to lose for them to lose this spot, if I'm being honest, because this is the best team in the country, and there are teams that are close, don't get me wrong, but they are asserting their dominance the exact way that they have the past couple of years, and I don't expect it to stop anytime soon. So incredible ability on this team, so much versatility, and they're one of those teams that now you got Trevor Etienne in the mix, and that makes them even more scary. So we'll see what they do against Kentucky this week. I tend to believe it's going to be a bludgeoning, but we'll find out, and maybe they drop a little bit after that game. But as of right now, this is the Georgia that we've come accustomed to in college football. But that'll do it for this edition of the GSMC College Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. Your support means a lot to us, so please remember to subscribe to the show, leave a positive review. It does make a huge difference for us. We'll be back tomorrow to do some week 3 previews, and would love to hear from you guys about anything you want to hear from these previews, any matchups that you'd like to hear about, any players that you'd like to hear, whatever you'd like to kind of structure those previews as. I would love to hear from that, just to kind of structure this a little bit more towards you guys, because that's what it's all about, right? So definitely check that out tomorrow. We will be back with that. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, all the social pages for all the content and updates you could possibly need. But we'll be back here for more Week 3 predictions tomorrow. So thank you once again for listening, and I will see you guys then.